Monthly Testosterone. Find MassMoney.com, Gem Plumbing, and by Golf.
On Boston's home for sports, 98.5, the Sports Hub.
You talked about how the kind of selective usage of Meyer and Roman forthcoming against lefties is something you've done with other young players, like True, right? Like Duran, Devers, all of them. What is it? At what point do you start giving them the opportunities against elite lefties?
I don't know. Maybe Friday, maybe Saturday or Sunday. I mean, like it's just let's wait for the lefty to face. Let's wait for us to face a lefty.
Yeah.
And when we see the lineup, then you guys can.
Well,
ask me.
I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it in that sense, like a date. Like
Yeah.
I meant more like what you want to see from them. Like when you're like, okay, like they've kind of built a baseline to permit enough.
I mean, we had some good righties here that, you know, like we don't play roaming, we don't play ref against a lefty. Is that good for the team? You know, I mean, I get the whole conversation. They're great hitters, and they're good players, but the two guys are really good at what they do, you know, and we're trying to win as many games as possible. And if they're above average righties, you know, we got to find a way to play. And we cannot play 13 position players. We cannot. So I get it. I understand. There's you know, people get frustrated, and I get frustrated too, you know, because I get the same question over and over again. But I've been doing it since 2018 like this, you know, like Rafi Devers platoon in 2018, and right now he's one of the best hitters in the big league. So, you know, it's not that I have this formula that says, oh, you cannot face lefties, but Eduardo Nunez was good against righties, you know, and then in 19 we let him hit, and he was really good, Rafi. So I don't know. Honestly, I cannot answer the question, to be honest with you.
So Alex Cora can't answer the question, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer the one I'm asking you tonight either, and they're related. So this is where we started the baseball hour, 617-779-0985. I always feel compelled to give out that number at the start of the show, even though I know you already know it. But here's my question for you as it pertains to the Red Sox, and specifically this decision by Alex Cora. And I say that without knowing fully whether it's Cora who's making the decision or whether it's Craig Breslow, it's the analyst, or analysts, it's the baseball operations people, it's the minor league people. I don't know who specifically is making this call. I happen to believe it's Alex Cora. Maybe you believe it's Craig Breslow. Whoever it is, I can guarantee you that the Red Sox don't agree on the inside about it. Because it doesn't seem to me like they agree about anything anymore, let alone this. So here's the question. Yankees are coming into town this weekend. The Red Sox have just won 2 series in a row. One against New York, one against Tampa Bay. The Yankees are throwing 3 left-handed starters at the Red Sox, and Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, both of whom are now in the Boston lineup, both bat left-handed. Cora is saying, essentially, he's not putting them out there. Jared Carabas last night, among other people, think it's preposterous that Anthony and Meyer are not playing full-time all the time against every pitcher, whether he's left-handed or right-handed. I lean towards Jared Carabas, but with an asterisk. So let me ask you, Jimmy Stewart, I would love your thought on this too. The Red Sox are, I think it's 30. Let me get the exact record. Okay. So the Red Sox record at this point here, they have played now 70 games even. They are 34-36. So they are approaching the midway point of the season. 34-36. Should they be playing Meyer and Anthony no matter what? Or should Cora go with his gut and his way of doing things and play Ref Snyder and Romy Gonzalez? And before you answer, let me just tell people, because a lot of people wouldn't know this. Ref Snyder and Gonzalez are excellent against left-handed pitching. Just to give you some of the numbers, when you talk about the players who lead the Red Sox in OPS against left-handed pitching, Alex Bregman is number 1. He's obviously out of the lineup. Ref Snyder is, and I take that back. Tristan Casas is number 1, but he's not available. Bregman isn't either. So let's just start with the right-handed hitters. Bregman is 1, Ref Snyder is 2, Romy Gonzalez is 3. Ref Snyder's OPS against lefties is 958. Gonzalez is 950. Those are otherworldly. That's an otherworldly number. That's like an Aaron Judge kind of OPS. And I know Aaron Judge's OPS this year is even better. But you understand the question. They're 34 and 36. If we look at the standings overall, the Red Sox they're 9 out in the division. They are only 3 games out in the wild card race. So, Jimmy, you tell me, because I'm curious about the callers too and the listeners. What would you do? Would you play Ref Snyder and Romy Gonzalez, or would you play Meyer and Roman Anthony?
I start with Anthony and Meyer against left-handed pitching, and depending on how the game goes, I adjust in game. If there's a big spot and I don't like the matchup, then I go to my bench and put in Ref Snyder, Romy Gonzalez, but I want to start Meyer and Anthony this weekend left-on-left matchups.
Okay, so then you're putting the player development of those 2 guys ahead of winning a playoff spot.
Yes.
Okay. Believe it or not, I would actually do what Cora's doing. I would play Gonzalez and I would play Ref Snyder. And then now I'm going to give you a little bit of an asterisk. It's kind of a weaselly question by me, Jimmy, if you want to know the truth, and I'll tell you why. Because I would play Gonzalez and Ref Snyder, but I would also play Meyer at third. Okay, they can put Romy Gonzalez at first, take Abraham Toro out of the lineup, and put Meyer at third base. I have a big problem with Abraham Toro playing ahead of Marcelo Meyer, and I know that Toro's playing well.
That's your 3-hitter, Tony.
Okay, I know he's playing well. I think Toro is better from the left side. So what Cora's telling me, though, is he thinks that Abraham Toro from the right side is still better than Marcelo Meyer against left-handed pitching. I think that's ridiculous or outrageous.
Well, Tony, it's also the fact that Cora and Lou on the broadcast are telling us that AAA left-handers suck, and we should throw out all the left-on-left numbers that Anthony and Meyer acquired over their time in AAA.
Okay, so again, to me, it's and I actually believe part of that, Jimmy, that it makes sense that the left-handers in the big leagues are better than the ones at AAA. If the ones at AAA were good, they would be in the big leagues. So that thought makes some sense to me.
It's just, where was that in real time when they were crushing it? They just waited until they got to the big leagues and needed to manipulate the lineup before I heard from the left-on-left numbers don't matter in the minors.
So, but here's what I'm getting at. Abraham Toro, since he's been with the Red Sox, his OPS against left-handed pitching is 638.
Oh, that sucks. That's Trevor Story level.
Okay, it's 638. So why would you rather have him at third base instead of Marcelo Meyer?
Well, because defensively, Toro's better. Oh, wait, no, he's not.
So I would rather have Meyer in the lineup over Abraham Toro. That would be my answer to that. I actually think there's a happy medium there in splitting the baby, so to speak, but you get the idea. So, but at the end of the day, what I really wonder is this. Whose call is that, and do they agree on it? I know Felger said this earlier in the day, and he's not wrong to have this general belief of the idea that the general manager, the chief baseball officer, and the analytics department decides who's going to play against lefties, who's going to play against righties. They come up with the lineup, so it's really not even Cora's call. I actually think it is Cora's call. And part of me wonders if he's doing it to tweak the front office because they want Meyer and Anthony to get reps against left-handed hitting. If the Red Sox are playing for the future, then Anthony and Meyer should be playing so that they can play against lefties next year. The whole idea is get them the reps. I think that's the idea. Cora's doing the opposite. And the bottom line is this, and I keep saying this over and over again, and it is the recurring theme that frankly, I'll talk about every night if we have to.
Good, excellent.
Because I think it is the story with the Red Sox. Are they on the same page or not?
They're not.
Because I don't think they are. I don't think they've been on the same page for a long time. I don't think Cora's been on the same page with ownership. I don't think he's been on the same page with Breslow. I don't think he certainly wasn't on the same page with Chaim Bloom. I don't think the player development operation and the coaching staff are in agreement with the nerds on what to teach these guys in the minor leagues. I think the Red Sox are so fractured and are running in so many different directions that it explains why you're seeing the stupidity and sloppiness on the field. Because half of the team is there to pacify Cora. Half of the team is a product of their development system. Every guy that comes up from the minor leagues doesn't know how to play the game. They don't know how to play the team game. But the one thing I will say about Meyer, Anthony, and even Christian Campbell, who's been in a slump now for 6 weeks, they can all hit. I think Campbell can hit. I think Campbell has other deficiencies, and I know he hasn't hit well for a while. I think some of that is plate discipline and understanding how he's going to be attacked. But if you give him a pitch on the middle outside part of the plate, he can drive it to right field. He has ability. And the other two guys, Meyer had 2 home runs last night, and we know what Anthony can do. That double down into the left field corner should tell you plenty. Baseball, as we know, is all about consistency, but the swings, the approach on these kids, they all hit the ball to the opposite field. They can hit. They've been taught how to hit. Maybe they're natural hitters who've been taught how to hit, because if you could just teach people how to hit, everyone would be able to do it. These guys can do it. But it's the other stuff. So the points of emphasis in the Red Sox organization, I don't think that the people agree on them. I don't think Cora agrees with Breslow. I think ownership and management have bought in 100% on the analytics and have for a long time. And it has created this situation where Alex Cora makes a lineup decision, and we wonder whether the front office is on board with it, because they seem to disagree on everything else.
Tony, there's another element to ownership meddling in Cora's lineup is the walk-up ticket sales to Fenway Park, the ratings, the digital engagements for Nesson. When Roman Anthony was called up, they all went up. They all went sky high. So the Yankees are in town. It's not necessarily given a sellout. So is ownership going to be like, Anthony has to be in the lineup because look at the week of games in crummy weather against the Rays, where we actually have Red Sox fans in the ballpark engaging on social media and watching the television product. Ownership is going to meddle in Anthony playing this weekend. You watch.
Well, so look, and again, on some level, Jimmy, I can't blame them. Here's what I do know, though. As it relates to Meyer and Anthony playing them, again, I think there's a way to split it. I don't want the Red Sox to give up yet. That much I know. The last couple of nights, they've actually played good games. It wouldn't take much to get back in it. And if Walker Buehler and Lucas Giolito are starting to throw more fastballs, and Gonzalez and Ref Snyder hit left-handed pitching the rest of the year like they've hit it now, you can get into the playoffs still. I don't think that one has left the harbor. Quickly, Steve in Andover. Go ahead. What do you got, Steve?
Hi, Tony. What I'd like to know is when you see a prospect come up, how much time do you personally to see when that you think they should start hitting? I mean, in Anthony's case, now he's 1 for 12 right now. So how much longer, would you suggest that you'll see them start hitting the ball?
So Steve,
I'll hang up. Thanks.
Yeah, so Steve, I'll tell you what, again, and it's a bit of a cop-out answer. I don't have a set number of games or at-bats in. I will just say, based on what it looks like. Anthony does not look overpowered to me or overwhelmed at the plate. Meyer certainly doesn't. He had 2 home runs last night. Campbell, at times lately, has looked overwhelmed. The biggest problem Campbell has is that everybody knows he'll swing at a pitch on the inside part of the plate, or let me rephrase. He'll swing at the inside pitch that's off the plate. So he chases in there. Usually when you say someone chases, you have this vision of a slider that's 2 feet off the plate and Trevor Story or Ceddanne Rafaela waving the bat at a ball that he has no chance to hit. You can also chase on the other side. And Campbell does. Campbell chases on inside pitches because he's generally pretty good at hitting them. But there comes a point where, so let's say you like the ball outside. Roman Anthony shot a ball into the left field corner the other night that was 6 inches off the plate. But if you go to 8 inches, or 10 inches. Does that mean he should swing at it? The answer obviously is no. There's a tipping point, like everything else. So he can cover up to 6 inches off the plate and still hit it hard. Devers can do some of that too. But there comes a point where that pitch gets you out. And Christian Campbell is at that point. Okay, he crosses the line constantly. He's been a little bit better of late, but that's the issue with Campbell. And if a kid doesn't get it, make the adjustment, you send him back. So, again, 617-779-0985. I see you all lined up. Michael Hawley said something yesterday on the midday program. We played it for you last night when Carabas was here, but we'll play it again because I think it's worth a listen regarding the relationship between Alex Cora and upper management in the Boston organization. We'll get to that when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
Like, this should be treated as a developmental year. Let them develop. How do you know? Like, if you look at Roman Anthony's numbers against lefties in AAA, he's hitting like 360 with a 9-something OPS. He was crushing lefties. And Cora said something to the effect of, well, the lefties up here are different.
Correct.
They're much better. Okay, well, how do we know he can't hit them? If you don't let him face them, how do we know that he can't hit them?
Right.
I hate that, especially because if you're going to really go for it next year, when are they going to get the experience against lefties? How do you know that they can't hit big league lefties?
Sharon Karavis last night. It seems like a pretty simple thing, but it's a good point. Well, no, we don't think they can hit lefties. Lefties up here are different. Can you find out? Can you give it a shot? No, look, Cora's got, for all the people that want to dump on Cora, and it's fine, go ahead. Like, you want to fire Alex Cora, have a blast. We've all seen a million managers over the course of the years with the Red Sox. We'll see a million more. And I have nothing against Cora. But I do think Cora's got a knack for being able to see, swing patterns, hitches, glitches, whatever, and he can accurately predict whether a guy can hit a certain kind of pitcher or not. So his knack for that kind of stuff is excellent. And I know a lot of you hate him, and that's okay. Because there's some stuff you can look at with Cora and say, is he undermining the front office? Is he taking Rafael Devers' side? And this is another GM now that he's clashing with. So all of that stuff is legit. You can't ask the players to buy in if the manager doesn't buy in. So that's a problem. It feels like Cora wants to run the whole organization his way and doesn't necessarily play nicely with GMs, other than Dave Dombrowski. And who knows how that was going at the end. So all that is fair game. But he does have a skill set, and he does have a keen sort of eye for the game. That part is not debatable. But I always wonder, like the thing the other day with Roman Anthony on the field doing the outfield drills, fielding the ground balls, that was a shot at management. That was a shot at the Red Sox player development operation. And when I say the operation, I don't mean the coaches who are working with the players. I mean what the organization is emphasizing in terms of fundamentals and day-to-day concepts. It feels to me like these guys are all taught how to launch. They're taught, where to play defensively, but they're not taught where to throw, cut off men, bunts, fielding position, hands, all that stuff. Like, there's not enough emphasis placed on the actual baseball. Frank's in Weymouth. Frank, go ahead.
Tony, I love you and your baseball knowledge. Has Cora won a World Series?
Yes, one.
I'm 70 years old. Do you know how long I've waited for the Red Sox to win a World Series?
Well, Frank, they've won 4 of them.
All right, but I mean, I've been very lucky. My dad,
Frank,
100 years.
Frank, what's your point, though? What are you getting at?
I'm getting at. I'll give Cora some leeway. I'll give him some leeway. He won a World Series. Doesn't he deserve some recognition for that?
Okay, he's gotten recognition for it. It was 7 years ago. So what? All of a sudden, the guy wins one and he lasts forever. Like, I don't agree with that part of it either. That's ridiculous. So what? A guy wins a World Series and he gets a lifetime get-out-of-jail-free card? That's what it is once he wins. Why isn't John Farrell still here? He won one. So let's not get silly about it. At some point, you still have to keep producing every year. So again, you want to fire Cora. You want to keep Cora, you can keep Cora. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just telling you, I think when it comes to his ability to look at players and evaluate them, he's pretty good at it. That's all. How is he working with GMs? I think he undermines them and stabs them in the back. So, if it gets bad enough, if they're going to keep Breslow, and I think Breslow's going to win out, Cora's got to go. Cora's never going to believe in Craig Breslow. They have nothing in common. Back at the press conference when they introduced Breslow, people asked Cora about, former teammate. Cora goes, I don't really remember him. He wasn't willing to play up that angle. Tom's in Quincy. Good, Tom.
For someone who's been making a lot of suspect in-game adjustments, Cora really doesn't shy away from biting the hand that feeds them. And, I think you kind of called it out perfectly a little earlier, Tony. Frankly, it just doesn't seem like anybody's aligned on what the direction is. And ultimately, it kind of goes back to the philosophy of how to play baseball. And frankly, you just touched on this. The way they're training players these days isn't like traditional baseball. It's all about analytics. It's all about launch. And frankly, that hurts the product. I actually had I was in the city last night. I just happened to be spontaneous and, get cheap tickets. And I was shocked on how good of the seats were. I was third row right behind it.
Tom, I'm going to let you go just because that gets into a separate topic. But if you're telling me that, you didn't think you'd be able to walk up and get seats, I think that happens more frequently now than it has in a long time. Just look at the number of out-of-town fans that have been taking over Fenway Park over the last few years. It's been a lot. So now I will tell you, though, that fundamentally, last night the Red Sox were actually pretty good. They didn't strike out a crap ton. Narvaez threw out 2 base stealers. The one at second base was a freaking dart. Third's a little easier because he was shorter throw. The one at second was a bullet right on the bag. And Story made a good tag. So those were basic fundamental things. Narvaez popped up, strong, accurate throw. Story made a good tag. You took an out away from the opposition. The one at third, same deal. The play that Trevor Story made in the hole, he can get to the ball usually. He doesn't have the arm to make that throw, not anymore. But you know what he did? He bounced it and it was accurate. Good play. So all of that is good. Good, fundamentally sound baseball. 1-run game. They won 4-3. So to me, if they had done more of that during the course of the year, they wouldn't have had all these 1-run losses. They'd probably already be in a possession of a playoff spot. Now, we all know the game's about repeating it. Can you do it again? Can you be consistent? I don't know. I doubt it like you do. I look at them and I say, I think they play with their heads up their ass about 70% of the time. When they don't, they're okay. They're pretty good. So, could the light go on? Maybe. Could they clean it up? I don't know. But if they do, they can get back in it. That I believe. You still got 92 games to go. It's just one winning streak will change everything. It'll get you right back in the race. They haven't had one all year, really, because they don't have the consistent pitching. But I've said, and I'll make this quick, I hate the way they play defense. I hate the way they hit. I hate the way they pitch. What is there to like? So the last couple of nights, they're throwing more fastballs, or at least it feels that way, and maybe it's been more than a couple of nights. Oh, so has light dawned over Marblehead? Has Andrew Bailey finally come to the realization that pitching is proactive and it's better to be aggressive and keep guys on their heels? And by the way, Andrew Bailey, maybe the sliders and the breaking balls and the changeups and the splits, maybe they are more effective because the teams that get generally more effective against hitters is because hitters go up there knowing they have to guard against the fastball. Did you ever think of that? Kevin Majori's got your headlines here. Don't go anywhere. June Lee's going to join us next. Got some questions for him about the dynamic of the Red Sox management structure.
on the Sports Hub.
It's funny that you said it could be the nail in the coffin for Cora, and the reason I keep saying, the reason I've said, because I'm going to change my position on this after talking to somebody a couple of days ago. So the reason I've said, oh no, he's got time. They've signed him to this contract extension. Why would they move on from him now? Talked to somebody the other day and said, look, I like Alex, but he's different. He's different. He's not as engaged.
You mean he's different than other years?
Yes.
Okay.
He's different than he's been in the past. He's not as locked in. He used to be really locked in. Some of his decisions are strange. So something is going on, and the guess is from this person I was talking to was just like there's a lot of dysfunction there. There's just a tremendous amount of dysfunction.
Dysfunction in
front office.
Okay.
Between this back and forth between the front office and the manager's office.
Yes.
So we played that for you last night. That's Michael Hawley of NBC Sports Boston, formerly of the Boston Globe, longtime Boston sports reporter, columnist, commenter, etc. But you know, Michael, I don't need to explain that to you. And talking about the relationship between Alex Cora and the front office, and again, I just think that the interesting part of that to me, before we bring in our guest, June Lee, and again, I'll give you June's bio here in a second. But the interesting part of that to me is that Michael Hawley, I've been operating under the premise the Red Sox aren't going to fire Alex Cora in the middle of year one of a 3-year deal in which they're paying him $7.5 million. I don't see them doing it. And I still don't think they're going to do it. In fact, I would argue they're not going to fire him after the offseason or after the season, during the offseason. After listening to Hawley, now I'm starting to wonder. Would they look at it and go, this isn't working, this was a mistake, let's cut bait and move on? It's $7.5 million a year. It's not 29 like it was with Chris Sale. So it's a little different. But on that matter, with regard to Cora and the relationship with the organization, June Lee has been covering the Red Sox for some time, or has covered the Red Sox for large chunks of time over the last, call it, dozen years or so, right? You said 2013?
Yeah.
You were most recently with ESPN, but no longer with them, part of the layoffs there, right? And now have your own YouTube channel?
Yep.
I Am June Lee.
Yes, youtube.com/I Am June Lee.
And it's not all baseball, but you still keep your hand in on the Red Sox.
Of course.
Try to, so you tell me, what is the dynamic like over there from your perspective on, between what I'd call uniformed and non-uniformed?
Well, I think this is the continuation of a power struggle between Cora and the front office, dating back to when Chaim was working for the Red Sox. I mean, there was a lot of conversation, I think, around the team back then, too, where does Cora have a good relationship with Chaim? You guys talked about this a lot on the show. And the answer clearly was no, because there's not a philosophical alignment there. Bringing in Craig Breslow was kind of, in some ways, philosophically for John Henry, more of the same. And there's still not a lot of good communication between those two sides. I talked to a source who is close to Alex Cora, who mentioned that the level of communication, the quality of the communication between Cora and the front office is basically the same as it was with Chaim, which
was poor,
which was bad. It was not good. And they were never aligned in terms of kind of, should we be pushing hard to win this season? Should we be trying to build for the future? And of course, at the same time, you have the front office out there talking to fans about, this is the future. This is Roman Anthony. This is Marcelo Meyer. These are the guys that you guys should be betting your future happiness and excitement on. Now we're kind of at that moment, and we're still at this tension point where should we be gambling all of the eggs and chips on Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer? That's why I saw fans come out to Fenway Park during Roman Anthony's debut, which I was at, in terrible weather, and gave him a standing ovation. This felt like years of anticipation in the making, especially after the Mookie Betts trade. This felt like the first time the organization had done something that was for the fans in some way. And obviously, making every decision for the fans is not necessarily a smart way to run a baseball team. But it felt like years of anticipation paying off. And now we're kind of at this tension point where it's like, is Alex Cora trying to win now? Or are we trying to develop these guys, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, at the major league level? Or are you just going to kind of jerk them around and send them up and down the minor leagues as they're struggling and trying to figure things out?
And Cora, and again, I know some of this, but I'm just asking you to, Cora believes that you can't win with young players. Let me rephrase. Would you agree that Cora believes that you can't win with a roster of young players?
I think that it's hard to win with a team that is relying on almost centrally young players.
Correct.
Because I was talking to someone who used to work for the Red Sox front office, and we were talking about how the philosophy shift of the team in terms of how they treat their young players is dramatically different now versus what it was 10, 15 years ago when you were covering the team. When Dustin Pedroia came up, when Jacoby Ellsbury came up, they were kind of integrated into these bit roles. Like in Dustin Pedroia's rookie year, he wasn't expected to be the centerpiece. When Jacoby Ellsbury came up, it was kind of in the middle of the season, and he was kind of a slap around guy, and maybe he could end up being the leadoff hitter. With these guys, it's like, oh, Roman Anthony, like immediately out of the gate.
There's a lot on them.
There's a lot of pressure on them. They're pinning the entire almost hopes and future of like the entire city on these guys. And as well as I do, like so much of Boston's vibe is centered around whether or not the Red Sox are good. And so all of these things are kind of tied together, the optimism of the future. And, one of the things I thought was really interesting was that when I was talking to this former front office member, he was talking about how there was kind of this push and pull dynamic back in the old days where you kind of had to manage and massage the egos of the older players as you were integrating these younger guys. What I think is different with this team is because they haven't really gone all the way in on trying to win this season. They didn't sign all these veteran guys who have a ton of experience, who are trying to win now, whose careers, clocks are ticking. Because you haven't done that, you're kind of allowing these guys, these younger players, to come into a locker room that's maybe a little bit more friendly to them. But having that in-between place, not fully committing to one or the other, I think is leading to all of these questions where there's this massive philosophical gap between the manager who wants to win right now and a front office who's still trying to prioritize the future. And I think that by not deciding one or the other, you're creating these problems that didn't have to be there in the first place.
No, they're in no man's land.
Exactly.
And they have been for a while. It's a little bit more short-term oriented now because they went out and got Bregman. They traded for Crochet. So I understand that point is that they're a little, the balance shifted a little more towards short-term with some of the acquisitions they made during the offseason. But they're still not there yet. They're still prioritizing the long term over the short term. Everything's about the future. It's about the development of the young kids and less about winning the games now. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you a simple question, because this is my belief, June. Are they broken internally? Do you think they're broken internally? Because that thing they did on the field the other night with Roman Anthony and allowing him to do basic fundamental outfielding drills, fielding ground balls, and how to position his glove. To me, the fact that happened during a time where there were television cameras and reporters at the ballpark was a statement to the organization about this is the kind of teaching we have to do here with these guys now because they're not getting in the minor leagues.
But at the same time, it speaks to the amount of pressure they're putting on guys like Roman Anthony to be good right now, because there's all of this pressure on him to be the savior of the franchise. And I think this ties all the way back to the Mookie Betts trade, which is, it's crazy that we're still talking about this to some degree, because I think the Mookie Betts trade and what it signaled, not just to the players in the clubhouse, but the rest of the organization, culturally, what it meant to the organization, broke the team's spirit, the long-term philosophy, because Mookie is the best homegrown athlete that we've seen in the Red Sox farm system come up, become a superstar since Ted Williams, arguably. The fact that you didn't give that guy a long-term contract, a guy who wanted to be in Boston, who wanted to spend the rest of his career in the city, that you didn't prioritize spending your money, the fact that you didn't plan around that, it sends a message to the entire organization. You can be as good as Mookie Betts, but you're still disposable. And I think when you set that tone in the organization, what does that mean for a guy like Roman Anthony or Christian Campbell or Marcelo Meyer? You're kind of coming up through the farm system on a little bit of a shakier foundation. At the same time, there's this rising sense of pressure on these guys to be the savior. Like Mookie, this is something that I think is a really important thing that kind of illustrates the shift in the organization's culture. Mookie felt comfortable enough going year to year on his contracts. He felt confident enough to bet on himself that the organization would not only support him financially, but would give him the resources to become the best player possible, because that's who he wanted to be. That's a level of confidence that is quite exceptional and special. A lot of guys would sign that early deal because they want to lock up that money and security for their family for generations.
Like Christian Campbell.
Exactly. The difference, though, with Christian Campbell is that he hasn't done anything yet. And so, for me, there are some people around the Red Sox organization as well who are like, does the fact that Christian Campbell signed this contract so early, is that a red flag on his confidence as well? Maybe not a major red flag, but just like one of those things that you kind of note in the back of your head, like, this guy has not played a game in the major leagues yet.
And he and Betts were drafted in similar rounds, right?
Exactly.
One was in the 4th, one was in the 5th, or ish.
Kind of similar. And, I think that there's been a lot of probably unfair comparisons that Campbell's had with Mookie. But that's a kind of mindset thing, right? You're going into this organization. Do you feel supported enough where you feel like you can really maximize your talent, or do you feel like you need to sign this contract early because you're maybe not even confident in whether or not you're going to be able to maximize your talent here?
Right. All right, look, I'm going to let you go just because we're up against it. But the YouTube channel again is I Am June Lee.
Yes.
And that's IAMJOON.
LEE.
Okay. And June is JOON, just so people don't think you were named after a month on the calendar.
I've gone those jokes my entire life.
I'm sure.
David Ortiz once introduced himself to me as April once I said my name was June.
Okay, there you go. What did he call me? Jimmy, what's it? I've told you the story. What did he, I'll think about it during the break. It'll occur to me. Jeremy. He called me Jeremy. He said, Jeremy, what do you think? And I'm looking over my shoulder like, what the hell? Who's he talking to? Little did I know he thought my name was Jeremy. Anyway, June, listen, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll be back with your phone calls. Don't go anywhere. Jake and Revere, Sean and Marlboro, sit tight. Be back in a second on the Baseball Hour.
This and more of the Baseball Hour.
All right, a couple patiently waited here. So before we sign off, let's just take a couple of more calls. Jake is in Revere on Alex Cora. Go ahead, Jake.
Maz, thank you for taking the call. Alex Cora has basically, knew what he was getting into with Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, and even Kyle Teal at the time when he signed his new deal. If I'm Craig Breslow, I feel like he's been stabbed in the back. Like, he takes a lot of heat in this town, but I think he's right on this. Like, Alex Cora knew what he was signing up for last year when he signed that extension. There were going to be kids. There were going to be some ups and downs. Like, what's changed since last July when he signed his new deal?
So, Jake, thank you for the call. I generally agree with this part of it, and this is where I sort of get off the bus with Cora. Cora signed that extension knowing what he was getting into. I'm with you 100% on that. And I'll even go so far as to tell you, I think they gave him some assurances that they were going to add a little bit more to the team because they wanted to win now. So they brought in Bregman. They brought in Crochet. That was a significant trade. I'm trying to think there was another move that they made. I thought I'm trying to put them all together. But there were 2 or 3 maneuvers, and I'm not counting Aroldis Chapman, but you get the idea. We'll go out and get you a couple of veteran guys. Cora wanted Bregman. He had to fight for it. I'm not sure Breslow wanted to do it. Ownership signed off with Cora. They got the deal done. They brought Bregman in. Now, it's a series of 1-year deals. But whatever. The idea is that they pacified Cora a little bit by improving the short-term roster as well as maintaining their long-term interests. So it was a little bit of both. Cora gave up the right to bitch right when he signed. That's how I feel. So, yes, in that way, here's what I'm getting at. Cora hasn't bought in. He hasn't fully bought in. He's got his contract, but he doesn't believe in the cause. Well, that's a horrible way to start the relationship. And I don't think that that's going to get better. I think the Red Sox are going to end up paying Alex Cora $22.5 million for a year or a year and a half worth of service. I don't think it's going to last. They're going to have to get a manager that believes in what Craig Breslow's doing. Otherwise, the same crap's going to happen with the next guy. Sean's in Marlboro. Sean, go ahead.
Hey, anyone that thinks Cora's untouchable, listen, Belichick wasn't untouchable. Cora literally had a GM that sold the farm system to win now, and he won 1 World Series and then got suspended for cheating. Literally, he is for anyone to think that he is untouchable, especially if he now just doesn't even care and doesn't put effort or whatever it is, if he's fighting with man, like, there is no way he's even close to untouchable.
Yeah, so Sean, I agree with you. And for those who don't know, we had a caller earlier that said Cora won a World Series, so, he deserves some latitude. That was 7 years ago. And the next year they showed up and said, well, we don't really want to turn the page because of what we did last year, which is the wrong thing to say. What do you mean you don't want to turn the page? You have to. That's part of the deal. You show up, you play the next year, and you try to win again. They went 84 and 78. They really haven't been the same since. So now look, if it turns around and Cora buys in, okay. Like, I'm not making the decision now. I'm just telling you that if this continues, it can't go on like it's been going on. Where the manager doesn't believe in the chief baseball officer, and yet they keep forcing them together. That does no good. And for the people just quickly who want to bitch about the young roster, I understand they've had a couple of injuries, specifically the one to Bregman. The Red Sox are the 11th youngest team in the big leagues. It's not like they're third. And they have enough players to make the playoffs. They should be better than they are. Are they world championship caliber right now? No, but they're underachieving. Nobody was bitching about the age of the roster at the beginning of the season. In uniform or out of uniform. Nobody was bitching. Kevin Majori will get you caught up on headlines. Joe Murray has you for the balance of the night. We'll catch you tomorrow on the baseball.